Hello and thanks for joining us for the weekend wrap-up. I'm Jurnee Taylor. Our top story this week, a pastor in Warren facing several felony charges after a months-long investigation into his online activity. Rocky Goodwin is the lead pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. According to court documents filed this week, he's accused of possessing child sex abuse materials. Rebecca Brown looked into those documents and shares what we learned this week.
A long investigation has finally come to an end for special agents of Arkansas State Police. For months, they have been looking into 86-year-old Rocky Goodwin of Warren. According to court documents released on Monday, Microsoft reported violations tied to Goodwin's username. Those reports were sent to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, triggering ASP to investigate the situation. On Friday, May 3rd, troopers executed a search warrant at Goodwin's home. Investigators seized several devices, including laptops and hard drives, on which investigators say they discovered, quote, one compressed zip file with sexually graphic in nature label, which included the words 12-year-old girl. Then on June 20th, investigators say they found 47 Category 1 images and 24 Category 2 images child sexual abuse material on the devices. Those findings led to Goodwin's arrest on August 15th. According to the court documents, Goodwin, quote, denies any knowledge of the child sexual abuse material and denied operating the laptop in that illegal manner. That same day, a judge set a $150,000 bail for Goodwin and made him surrender his passport. Earlier this week, the prosecuting attorney's office in Bradley County filed 10 counts of felony charges against Goodwin, including distributing, possessing, and viewing sexually explicit conduct involving a child. Rebecca Brown, THV11 News.
Goodwin's arraignment is set for September 28th in Bradley County. As for his bond, at least part of it has been paid, as Goodwin was seen preaching again on the church's live stream as early as September 8th. Now, a heads up for SNAP recipients. You may have been a target for scammers to steal your benefits, but thanks to a new federal law, victims are getting a way to get that stolen money added back into their accounts. Brooke Buckner shows us how this new temporary program can help hundreds of people.
And we want to do the outreach and feel like the outreach is important because there may be people who didn't report it because outside of this legislation, the federal law prohibited us from replacing the benefits.
But now, people with stolen benefits can ask to be reimbursed if the theft happened between October of 2022 and the end of this month. During this time period, Mary Franklin with the DHS Division of County Operations says nearly 300 of these thefts have been reported.
Their family is victimized by not having access to those benefits because they were stolen. So we're very glad to be able to be participating in this effort to try and replace those benefits.
So how does the scam work? Franklin says it's electronic fraud and involves skimming and cloning.
And skimming is when someone puts a device over a point of sale machine where someone would put their card in order to make a purchase, and then that device steals the information off the card.
And cloning is when someone has stolen information from someone's EBT account and can use a copy of the card to access the benefits.
We don't want anyone to be a victim of a crime.
That's why she recommends not sharing your PIN number and not choosing a repetitive, easy-to-guess PIN.
It's also a good idea to check your balance on your account. Look at the transactions. Make sure you don't see anything suspicious. And if you do see something suspicious, change your PIN number immediately to protect the balance that's on your card.
In Little Rock, Brooke Buckner, THV11 News.
Goodwin's arraignment is set for September 28th in Bradley County. As for his bond, at least part of it has been paid, as Goodwin was seen preaching again on the church's live stream as early as September 8th. Now, a heads up for SNAP recipients. You may have been a target for scammers to steal your benefits, but thanks to a new federal law, victims are getting a way to get that stolen money added back into their accounts. Brooke Buckner shows us how this new temporary program can help hundreds of people. 2. You have until late November to report thefts to DHS. We have those instructions linked on our website, THV11.com. Turning now to the campaign trail, the first votes of the election season were cast in several states this week, thanks to mail-in ballots. A new exhibit explores the history of voting by mail, and as Scott McFarland found out, the practice has been around a lot longer than you may think.
Mail-in voting surged in popularity during the pandemic. Then it was the subject of baseless conspiracy theories and false claims of fraud by some critics, including former President Donald Trump and his supporters.
We have to be very careful with the ballots. The ballots, that's a whole big scam.
But mail-in voting has only grown in popularity, and it will be used again this year. Voting this way is hardly new or revolutionary. It's older than many of the states that use it. Inside the Smithsonian's National Postal Museum in Washington this month, they're delivering some of that history.
What should people know about the history of this?
That it's been around so long with very little, working pretty well and with very little incidents.
With this new election year exhibit, including an envelope used to carry votes by Civil War soldiers who voted remotely in their hometown elections, and a 100-year-old photo of then-President Calvin Coolidge and the First Lady filling out their 1924 election ballot from a desk positioned outside the White House. And this blank ballot sent to World War II troops to vote from the war front. Troops had to write in the names of their preferred choice.
This is a pretty powerful image here.
And voting in World War II internment camps. Oregon launched a local vote-by-mail-only election in the 1980s. State election officials this month warned of the risk of late deliveries or some ballots being returned undeliverable because of the high volume of those being processed. But CBS News contributor and election law expert David Becker says teaching the history of mail-in ballots helps counter baseless claims of fraud in the mail.
Prior to 2020, there was consensus that this is a great option for voters who chose to vote that way, that it made managing elections easier for election officials because it meant some or all wouldn't be showing up at the polls. There would be shorter lines.
The Postal Service processed 105 million ballots in the 2022 election, sending them through facilities like this one. But they emphasize that's just a small percentage of the overall mail processed in any given year. Scott McFarland, CBS News, Gaithersburg, Maryland.
And if you're still not registered to vote, there's still time to get that done. The deadline is October 7th. We've got everything you need to know about the process and how to do it on THV11.com. Just text the word VOTE to 501-376-1111 and we'll send that link straight to your phone.
I'm not going to be happy with that until we reach the 60 days. I would love to have 30, but 30's very hard.
Well, that was the former director of the Arkansas State Crime Lab talking about the backlog of untested sexual assault kits nearly 2 years ago to the day. For years, the Crime Lab has told us clearing this backlog was their top priority. Now, as this THV11 investigation unveiled, we are starting to see positive results.
Forensic scientists are busy at work at the Arkansas State Crime Lab processing sexual assault kits.
Inside a kit contains different swabs that are utilized by the healthcare facility to collect evidence in the case of a sexual assault.
Jennifer Beatty West is the Deputy Director of Scientific Operations at the Crime Lab. She tells us processing each kit takes time, focus, and precision. The problem, though, too much time is passing and victims remain without answers. For years, the Crime Lab has reported a backlog of these kits.
We continue to hear you, we continue to value you, and we continue our commitment to providing excellent forensic sciences services in a timely manner.
But for the Crime Lab, that's been historically difficult to do. Back in 2016, the Arkansas Crime Lab says there were 2,217 untested kits in our state. Flash forward to 2019, progress, but still, 461 untested kits remained. In 2023, more progress with 241 untested kits and 247 tests pending. still not completely cleared.
There are people attached to each kit waiting on an answer, waiting for justice for either themselves or for their loved one, for their child.
Over the years, the state, in partnership with the Crime Lab, has worked to drive down these numbers, even implementing a tracking system to increase transparency for victims as they wait for answers.
If a survivor does have a question about where their kit is in the process, if they have their barcode number from their kit, they can go in and check it on our website.
The Crime Lab's 2024 numbers are the lowest they've had in years, at 89 unassigned kits and 60 in progress.
With the governor's support, we've been able to hire 5 additional DNA analysts. That has improved our turnaround time.
This isn't the only time the state has stepped in to assist the Crime Lab. They passed legislation in 2019 to specifically address some of these issues, Act 839. It mandates that once a kit is collected from a victim and given to law enforcement, they're required to submit it for processing within 15 days of receiving it. From there, the Crime Lab has 60 days to complete lab testing. For years, the Crime Lab has been missing this state mandate by a long shot.
In 2022, our turnaround time for reported sexual assault kit tests was approximately 8 months. This year, and specifically within the last 4 months of this year, our team is really proud to report that our turnaround time for reported sexual assault kit testing is less than 2 months.
More progress to report, but the Crime Lab says the work isn't finished. They tell us by 2025, they hope to have the backlog cleared, and they're working to decrease the turnaround time even further.
Our survivors are getting answers in a more timely manner, but at the same time, 2 months is still not acceptable for anybody waiting to hear what may have happened to them, what happened to a loved one, what happened, to a family member. And so whatever we can do to, one, keep an eye on this backlog and make sure we're not going backwards, that we continue to move forward, and that we can continue to deliver the best quality results in the most timely manner to our Kansans is going to be the biggest thing that we can do and the biggest priority for us here at the Crime Lab.
The Crime Lab says they look at their numbers monthly to stay on top of the backlog. Right now, they receive about 65 sexual assault test kits per month on top of cases they already have. But they are working to build a new crime lab that will hopefully provide more space and resources to help manage the backlog. Social media companies are stepping up to protect teens online. After the break, we're looking at the new tool from the creators of Facebook and Instagram, trying to restrict social media access for the next generation. But first, Maya Ellison shows us the damage a group of feral hogs is causing in one community.
Imagine this. You wake up one morning and you see that your yard is completely torn up. Where that's the reality for some residents in Gurdon who have been dealing with the problem of feral hogs.
There have never been wild hogs in Gurdon, Arkansas.
Jerry Hawley is living through an inconvenience no one wants to have. 5 days ago, he noticed his yard was pulled apart by wild hogs.
I had minimal damage, a little bit up on the ditch edge and very little down there in the other part of the yard. But as the days continue, they have done more damage, taking over a good portion of that backyard.
Hawley says he believes the hogs are finding their way into the yards of many due to clear cutting, dry weather, and prolific breeding, causing damage like this in front yards and even the local cemetery.
What they do is their front leg has basically one knuckle. They bend that knuckle down, lay that on the ground, and then they go down, and that's when they use their snout to do all their devastation, digging for grubs and roots and whatever they're looking for to feed on.
While Hawley works to clean up this pigsty, he's worried about one thing.
Problem is, we're afraid they're going to come back.
That's why the Arkansas Department of Agriculture has initiated the Feral Hog Eradication Task Force, aimed at providing Arkansans like Hawley with solutions to remove the public nuisance. Ryan Farney says the mistake many people make when dealing with wild hogs is getting in touch with the right people.
The first call that we want people to make is to USDA, and they will have somebody out as soon as possible to help set up a trap, and those services are free of charge.
Through the task force, the goal is to eradicate feral hogs, so towns like Gurdon are not left with the burden of costly damage and disturbances.
We need to do everything that we can to get rid of them so that we can conserve our natural resources and protect the native wildlife.
In Gurdon, Maya Ellison, THV11 News.
The way teenagers use Instagram is changing dramatically. In a pivot to address concerns over child safety, that means young users will have more privacy and fewer notifications automatically. But Jolene Kent spoke to parents and the company's safety chief on whether it's enough.
Danielle Wilkinson does not allow her 13 and 9-year-old daughters to use social media.
I worry about everything. So if I can have one less thing to worry about, then for me, it's a win-win.
But she's encouraged to see Instagram's newly announced teen accounts rolling out over the next 2 months. Instagram will automatically make accounts for users under 18 private. Among the new restrictions, teens can only receive messages from people they follow or are connected to. Exposure to sensitive content will be limited, and notifications will be muted overnight.
This is a major change. It will affect tens of millions of teens on Instagram.
Antigone Davis is Meta's global head of safety. She says users under 16 will need parental approval to make changes.
I mean, can't teens just get around these settings?
We're going to ask them to verify their age. We are building artificial intelligence to identify potential age liars and put them into these stricter protections.
Meta is also adding optional features allowing parents to see who their teen has messaged over the last week, view the topics they're looking at, and set daily time limits. It all comes after years of pressure from Congress and parents, as well as a lawsuit by dozens of state attorneys general against parent company Meta.
What do you say to lawmakers and parents who say, this is just Meta trying to figure out another tool that's just not going to work?
We've listened to parents and tried to take in their concerns and put in place automatic protections.
Despite these new guardrails, Wilkinson is not quite ready to take the leap.
Will I ever be comfortable before 16? Probably not. Will it make me feel a little bit better and make me feel like I'm glad I waited as long as I did? Yeah.
Meta tells me they're going to be using artificial intelligence to figure out if teens are lying about their age. The executive I interviewed said that if there are multiple violations, they will remove teens from Instagram altogether. Jolene Kent, CBS News, Washington.
What do cars and newscasts have in common? Brakes. Yeah, we'll be right back after this one and we'll show you how one man is using jokes to help bring his community together. But first, have you ever wondered how the mercy rule works in sports? Our Verify team tackled that question for us, and here's what they found out.
On Friday nights in fall, stadiums come alive across Arkansas as communities gather in the stands to cheer on their hometown teams. On the field, players battle for yards and points, but sometimes the competition can get a little lopsided. One Verify viewer wants to know, are there official guidelines when the mercy rule is used in a blowout game? So let's verify. Our sources are the Arkansas Activity Association and the National Federation of State High School Associations. The mercy rule, also called the sportsmanship rule, is used during junior high and high school games in Arkansas if one team is clearly outplaying the other. Official guidelines say it should be put into place when one team has a lead of 35 points or more by halftime or at any point in the second half. Bobby Swafford with the Arkansas Activity Association says it is a recognized part of football and other team sports, first adopted by the National Federation of State High School Associations and later voted into the AAA's handbook.
Sometimes things don't go your way. Maybe you didn't have the proper game plan. Maybe the team's better than you are, but we don't want to sit there and dwell on it.
Once the mercy rule begins, the clock runs continuously to end the game sooner, only stopping for touchdowns and timeouts. A former Arkansas athlete himself, Swafford says he believes the 35-point number is fair and that the average of 5 possessions it would take the losing team to come back is unlikely, even in the best of turnarounds. He points out that while second or third string players might not have time to play, it's better to keep all players from potentially getting hurt.
It also reduces lack of injury because you think about it, you've got a team who is significantly better. And that's oftentimes, if you're going to get a mercy rule, that's going to be the case. That means their players may be bigger, faster, stronger. That's going to limit the amount of injury, the potential for injury against those teams who may not be up to that level as of yet. They're going to get there, but they're not there yet.
So we can verify that, yes, there are official guidelines for the Mercy Rule, and schools in Arkansas affiliated with the AAA must abide by them. According to Swaffer, those schools make up roughly 99% of districts at the junior high and high school level.
That's the biggest dumpling I've ever seen in my life, and I cut it in half. I cut that in half. This week we're back in my home county of Lonoke, in the town of Lonoke, right downtown at the Cozy Nook Cafe. This incredible spot has amazing art, amazing cuisine, and probably the best cinnamon roll I've ever had in my life, with fresh ingredients that come from right down the road. What do you say? Let's eat it up. This is such a unique, beautiful spot that I wouldn't think I'm in Lonoke, Arkansas when I walk in here.
We hear that a lot. It's like, where did this come from? And I can tell you that it's a little bit of Hot Springs, it's a little bit of Oklahoma, it's a little bit of my travels, my art degrees, and my art teaching, and then I love to cook, and my son's a chef, and he said, Mom, let's get busy. Our milk, our eggs, our meat, and all our vegetables, and most of our fruit all come within 40 miles. All our sandwiches are named after famous artists.
Okay.
What's a Warhol? Well, in our case, it's a chicken salad sandwich.
Okay, I was assuming tomato soup, but I didn't know.
Yeah, it's we do soups of the day.
Oh, gotcha.
So, this was an alley, technically. As the town grew, they closed it in, so it's a nook between two main buildings. It's 19 feet across, so it's very cozy, and when you get in the kitchen, you realize just how cozy it is. Directly out of the oven, and I know a lot of people are going to argue with this, but what happens is the icing goes down and it'll make the inside soggy. So you let them rest.
Okay.
It's kind of like a good slab of meat. Give it about 15 minutes. We're going to push that around and see the icing's not melting. It's staying on top.
First bite. Oh my gosh.
It's nice, isn't it?
It's knee buckling. In we go. This is a first on our show. We've never eaten something that I've helped make. I'm fired up. Look at that. I'll say this too, if you're ever feeling under the weather, please just come to Lonoke and get some of these chicken and dumplings. I promise you, you will be feeling right as rain. And these pinto beans, they're local too, right down the road. It's amazing how many small towns contribute to this incredible place here in Lonoke. Y'all know me, I love my barbecue. If it gets on your hands, that just means you're doing it right.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. Two TV antennas meet on a roof, fall in love, and get married. The ceremony was boring, but the reception was brilliant. As you can tell, we love dad jokes here at THV11. Some are good and some you can't help but to roll your eyes. But this week, Sean Martinelli shows us there's no such thing as a bad joke if it makes just one person smile.
Put the board out here on the table.
Each morning begins with a blank slate.
Wipe off yesterday's joke.
And for Tom Shrubin, a familiar squeak. This is day 1592 of Tom's routine. He spent 10 minutes thinking and writing every morning for nearly 4.5 years.
What's the best supplement for wrinkles?
All in the name
Iron.
of dad jokes.
They recognize me on the street now. Morning. Even if I'm in the grocery store, they'll say, hey, you're the bad dad joke guy. Rather than turning on the news, no offense, and hearing about the terrible things that happened overnight, bombings and shootings. And, I start my day with trying to figure out something that would make people laugh.
4 years ago, that board first appeared outside Tom's Kensington, Maryland home.
Yeah, it was born out of COVID desperation, I think. People weren't talking to each other on the street. It was very scary at that time. My wife said, you got to do something, Tom.
One dad's idea soon became the entire neighborhood's muse.
It just became a real blessing in our lives that for one moment we could stop and smile. My sons think that I've become kind of a kindred spirit because I tell the jokes so often, and that's why they gave me this mug.
It makes a lot of people laugh. And what can be better than making people laugh?
Although if we're being honest,
some of the jokes I didn't even think were all that funny.
Others agree.
I mean, some of them are just real groaners.
Eye rolls are to be expected. What happened next was not.
Tom, thank you for serving our neighborhood and beyond with laughter.
COVID may have been the reason Tom's routine got going.
We've been enjoying your bad dad jokes since you have been at it for so long.
The impact is what has kept it going.
And then on the back, they had attached some candies.
From the boy with special needs who visited twice a day.
And he said, I come by twice because it's better the second time.
To the woman who sent the jokes to her dad as he battled COVID in a New Jersey hospital.
She would use that every day to encourage him to sort of stick with it because it was a real struggle.
Is that the one that's touched you the most?
I think so, yeah. It made me cry.
Tom believes laughter can be a medicine for grief.
Yeah.
And he would know.
We've had our share of tragedy in our lives, maybe more than our share. People ask me that, do you have children? I say, yeah, I have children. And they say, well, how many? And I say, well, it's complicated. I have 6 children and 4 living.
20 years ago, Tom's 4-year-old son Tucker died in his sleep.
It's still a mystery today why he died, but that just left a huge hole in our lives, and it was just such a shock because he was a perfectly healthy kid. He was a delightful little boy.
5 years later, Tom's family welcomed twins, Darcy and Alana. Then heartbreak came again.
The doctors say it was unrelated to what happened to my son. Alana, turns out she had a genetic defect that caused her to have seizures that ended up killing her. Life involves suffering sometimes. You just kind of got to go on.
And so he goes.
I got thrown out of mime school on my first day.
With each joke,
I think it might have been something I said.
Tom is honoring the joy of his children.
I was going to tell a time travel joke, but you didn't like it.
While bringing joy.
My hen counts her own eggs. She's a mathematician.
To others.
He's doing something for other people, make people joyous. Maybe I can do something like that too.
If that's the thought from those who pass.
Nice for you to come by.
We're regulars, so.
Yeah.
Then Tom says all 1,592 days, all 1,592 whiteboard posts were worthwhile.
Even small distractions can have a big impact.
And even bad jokes can do some good.
I haven't run out of jokes. As long as you keep your standards really low, there's an unlimited number of jokes, apparently.
What about this one? Why did the clock say goodbye to the calendar? They just ran out of time together. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Thank you for watching the Weekend Wrap Up. I'm Jurnee Taylor. We'll see you next week.